Stand him in the back. Medical, Cedar 3. Cedar. We need back, we need medical. We're gonna need SWAT, we're gonna have that. Down here. Get that.
Let those guys in.
Yeah.
Duty officer, you need SWAT down here, full gear.
Cedar.
Duty officer, go ahead, come back again.
Cedar. This Johnny. Yeah. 1 and 2. Yeah.
The shank went into 10.
We need medical help in Cedar. We need medical help immediately in Cedar.
Take these off my feet.
Yep.
I went into the situation that I'm going to have to kill the guy. I'm not going to just hurt him. I'm not going to stab him 2 times and say, yeah, we're even. You know, because the philosophy in prison is, you know, you stab me, I kill you. I just stabbed the shit out of him, you know, until he didn't move anymore.
The reason I said Troy Kell was one of the most dangerous people I've ever met is because Troy Kell, when you meet him and when you see him in a certain environment, is a very charming, charismatic, intelligent individual who certainly by no means looks like somebody who could commit a crime as heinous as he committed in this case.
I've seen guys hesitate on not thinking something was serious, and it was serious, and they get themselves stabbed up or they get themselves fucked off. They get themselves killed.
All the white supremacists were going, say hi to Troy, make sure, you know, let Troy know that I said hi. And they were given the power, the white power symbol.
Oh, sure.
So.
Well, and they like to mention that too because they want the status that's associated with him and his crime. Because they're looking to Troy, you know, he's our inmate god, and we're going to do anything we can to gain status with him because then that protects us within the institution. So they hold his shanks, they hold his brew, any contraband that he has, and he very subtly manipulates everything. And then to the administration, he wants to represent this clean image. Well, I'm not doing anything. You know, I'm not associated with these guys, but he still has his soldiers going out and performing these acts.
Well, that's a good cleanup for them. I mean, they have to say that to really justify doing that to me. I mean, keeping me in the hole, restricting my movements, making sure that there's no real freedom for me to have, and maybe I'm not entitled to that. I mean, it's perspective of the individual. You know, some individuals think that, you know, he shouldn't have anything. Give him some bread and water and put him in a cage somewhere. And that's fine too, but don't expect the guy to be a nice guy and smile and to say thank you for the bread and water every time you bring it. You know, it's a double standard. They expect you to suck ass regardless of what they're running their face about. You suck ass long enough, pretty soon you start choking on shit. A lot of my personality now is reflectant from how I was raised in the penitentiary. It desensitizes you. You don't have the human interaction, the contact, understanding or anything. It's structured that everybody's a piece of shit. You shouldn't respect anybody. It's kind of like, you know, just, it doesn't matter. You
have to realize why Troy Kell went to prison. And that being, at 18 years old, he concocts a scheme with a couple of his friends to take a young man he's never met before in his life, a young man named Cotton Kelly, take him out in the desert, take out a gun. Troy Kell takes out a gun and shoots him 6 times at close range in the face, killing him. After the killing, takes his wallet, and they go by a convenience store and buy liquor.
This guy, I felt, was taking advantage of a friend of mine, and she asked for my help. And I went kind of overboard. Me and a friend of mine from high school agreed to beat this guy up because he was doing some things to some teenage girls that we knew. She was a friend of mine. She was like a sister kind of to me.
I met Cotton Kelly at Circus 8 months prior to this actual tragedy. He ran some type of adult entertainment business. He wanted me to pose nude for him. He had started following me and calling my house constantly, harassing my family. And as a 15-year-old child, I made a very bad decision, a very immature request, and I called upon Troy to beat the man up, to have him leave me alone.
I was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, middle-class family. I'm the only child. I think I was probably just an ordinary kid on the block. I wasn't any different or anything from anybody else that I noticed.
Troy's been a part of our life ever since I first came to Las Vegas, since I was probably like 6 years old. We lived on one corner of the street, and on the opposite street, he lived at the other corner. And me and a couple of friends, 2 little girlfriends, were walking down the street, and him and his little friends were sitting in front of his house on their bicycles. And, they were watching us, googly-eyed, because he's 3 years older than me. So when we got all the way to the end of the street, towards the desert, we turned around and said something real sassy, and they chased us on their bikes, and we ran, and he jumped off his bike and tackled me in the grass, and, it just became like a plaything. And ever since then, he was like, "You're gonna be my girlfriend." And I said, "No, I don't even like boys."
Well, Troy used to come over to our house when he was like 7 years old, play with Sandy and Shane in the backyard, or go swimming. He was one of the neighborhood kids. Good kid.
My father's into horses and kind of a redneck background, country boy kind of thing, and we had horses and stuff. I was expected to be successful. My family, they're not losers.
His father was really, really strict, and I remember one time on his birthday, I think he was turning 13, and I believe I was 10, and I rode my bike all the way to the mall, and I bought him a Nike outfit, and he had to sneak out in his backyard and climb up on the brick wall for me to give him his gift, because he was on restriction. He was always on restriction, and for absolutely nothing.
His father must have been very tough on him, very abusive, I believe, with him. And his mother was never around. I know they were separated, but I don't think his mother came around too much. I don't know if it was because of the father or what, but I guess he looked at me more like a mother figure, because he's always sent me, even till this day, he sends me a bouquet of Mother's Day flowers.
My parents got divorced, and I kind of bounced back and forth between them. It was kind of a struggle for me for a while, but it's nothing out of the ordinary that any other kid goes through. I hung out with the stoners, and I also hung out with my jock friends, because I like to play sports, but I like to drink beer and smoke a couple joints on the weekend too. I went to school, but I didn't like school too much, the authoritarian kind of structure of were telling you to go here and do this, and I rebelled against that. Dropped out of school. Started getting in trouble after that.
The story goes like this. Shaw and two of her friends allegedly lure the Canadian man out here to the desert. We're north of the city. Shaw then allegedly gets out of her car, goes to the bathroom, and on the way back, falls down.
They had me pretend that my leg was hurt, and I guess this was a plan that they had conjured up.
The Canadian man got out of the car to help Shaw.
The man grabbed my arm to help me. That's when the first gunshot went off.
For a reason that I can't really understand, I decided to bring a gun and shoot the man and kill him. I didn't go to sleep that night. You know,
Think about running away?
Yes, of course.
But why didn't you?
I don't know. I didn't have anywhere to run to. You know, I couldn't just keep on running and running.
Police say this desert landscape near Rancho and Durango was the stage of a grisly show and tell this past week. Police say the three suspects spent a week going back and forth here in the desert, showing off the body to their friends. Then one of the small children who had seen the battered corpse got to feeling guilty and told police.
Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department called me at work at midnight and told me that they had Sandy downtown on a homicide. And I thought, oh my God, she hasn't gone through this again.
When I was 13 years old, I was spending the night at a friend's house, and her stepfather went into a jealous rage and shot and killed her mother and her mother's two friends, and then killed himself. It changed my life. I detached myself from my emotions. I didn't have a sense of life or death. It was just all the same to me.
Another episode happened to her. She's walking home from school, sees this guy come running up behind her, girl in front of her, sees the guy shoot the girl in the back of the head. She's already gone through this. Now this is two. How many times? I mean, I'm 48 years old. I've never seen anyone in my lifetime get shot. I mean, what are the odds? So I went down and I find out that she's the one being charged with it. I can't tell you how bad that hurt. To know my daughter was involved and a man's life had been taken.
That became known as the show and tell murder.
Right.
How did you get that name?
The girl was in high school at the time, and I wasn't. I had already dropped out of school. She had some girlfriends from school that she knew, that they both knew the man prior, and, you know, kids kind of, I don't know, brag about what happened, you know, remember that guy, and, well, he's, you know, dead out in the desert, and, you know, they don't believe her. So she decided to take him out there and see the guy, and that was kind of the way it went down.
The night after Cotton was shot, the next morning, I had gotten up to go to school. I didn't know if this had happened to me or was I just thinking this happened to me. I wasn't really sure. And so I went back to the scene of the crime, and I seen it from the side of the road. But it deal wasn't real.
Teenager Sandy Shaw testified in her own defense today, staring only at her attorney. Shaw explained how last September, she and 2 older boys drove into the desert with a Canadian man.
After the first shot, cotton moaned and hit the ground. And there was another shot, and then Billy yelled, "Get him down, Troy, get him down." And at the same time that was being said, there was 2 more shots.
What did you do?
There was nothing I could do. It was all behind. Everything was behind me. I was on the ground. It was all behind me.
What did you do?
I was screaming. At the trial, they told the jury not to allow my angelic looks to fool them, that the person I appeared to be was not who I really was, that in fact I was a cold-blooded killer.
How did that make you feel?
At the time, I really didn't feel anything. Through that whole time of my life, I really didn't feel nothing.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
And charging you with conspiracy to commit robbery, conspiracy to commit murder, robbery with the use of a deadly weapon, and murder with the use of a deadly weapon. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty. They offered me a life with the possibility of parole on a plea agreement, and being stubborn and kind of thinking I knew everything at the time, I didn't take it. I thought that 10 to 15 years was the rest of my life at 18 years old. And in reality, it's not. You know, you can start over again. I made a decision when I walked in the gate that I was gonna come in there as a man and I was gonna leave as a man. I wasn't gonna resort to things that a lot of people in my situation had to do to survive in prison. I wasn't gonna suck dick. I wasn't gonna wash people's laundry. I wasn't gonna tell on people. I wasn't gonna fall into that structure to survive in my environment. I kind of took responsibility at that time that I got myself in the situation. Now deal with it. I was fortunate in the sense of some older guys seeing that I had a lot of time to do, and I stuck up for myself, so they kind of put me under their wing on schooling me, on showing me who was who on the yard and what to stay away from. Don't get in gambling debts, don't get in any kind of drug debts.
You have predators. You have homosexual predators, you have extortionists, and a whole ball of wax, and they're going to test you.
One incident, I ended up getting shot and stuff like that on the yard, and with a guy that was a notorious booty bandit.
There was an older guy, a black guy, I can't even remember his name, homosexual predator.
I was 19 and this guy was in his late 40s, and we were on the yard, and it came to either, you know, he says, if you want respect, you're gonna have to come and get some respect. So I had to make sure that that wasn't going to be tolerated. That meant that you battled for it. They break it up by shooting rounds at you. from the waist. It's called skip rounding. I mean, it stopped the fight. It blew me off my feet, you know, because, I mean, you're getting shot by a 12-gauge shotgun from like 30 feet away. So it blew me off my feet, and, you know, the fight was over after that.
When I arrived at prison, I came to prison for forgery. I forged a $300 check. That's what I was in prison for. I was serving a sentence of a 1 to 15. I wasn't placed in like a minimum security prison for forgers. I was placed in a super maximum security prison for murderers.
Eric Daniels was a co-defendant to Troy Kell, and in fact was the individual during the homicide that laid across the victim's leg so as to incapacitate the victim from moving. The ironic thing, had been sent to prison on a 0 to 5, somewhat minimal forgery case, where he had actually taken a check from a local sheriff here, which was his first mistake, and then forged the sheriff's name on his check. Not a bright idea. Sent him to prison for 0 to 5. So Rick Daniels went from a small-time crook to never going to see the light of day outside of a prison again.
Here I am, a forger, living on death row. I was interacting and recreating with 3 guys that had death sentences that were going to be executed within the next 3 or 4 years, and I'm in prison on forgery. That's how I ended up becoming involved in violent situations. I felt my only avenue for relief was to lash out against the authority, and that's how I became involved with the riot.
Don't tell me nothing yet, and we got a deal. Until they fucking fulfill their part of the deal, we ain't racking in, regardless.
You feel slighted by the system because you're there in the first place, okay, and then that builds, okay, and that anger turns into resentment and then absolute bitterness.
We want our fucking mail.
Sorry, guys.
I don't think they're that.
Then there's Baum and Daniels.
See, that was impressive.
No way.
That's the control room door. The control room.
They're coming through.
Yeah, they're coming. Get out there.
They're not going to take that.
Bullshit.
God. Attention, all inmates in Cedar Section 1. Return to your cells now, or extreme force will be used against you. Return to your cells now and lock up, or force will be used against you.
They're coming. He's coming through.
They're going to break that door.
Yeah, they are.
No. The caps are coming off. Hey, they're going to take that door.
Okay, now what are they going to do?
Teleport has been breached. SWAT.
Hey, you guys, get out there.
Echo 102. Echo 102, the Sally Port section door has been breached.
You start to think that the officer that's holding you there, the one that comes and feeds you your tray every day, is evil. First thing that comes to most people's minds is lash out. Do something violent.
Back up, dude. Back up. Get out of that hole.
Water's off.
Oh, yeah.
Mike, get your camera turned over.
You're in your cell for so long, by yourself, you have no television, no radio, very little contact with the outside world. You develop different symptoms of mental illnesses, paranoid, schizophrenic, anxiety disorders, impulsive behaviors, and because you have absolutely nothing to do in there all day long, I plotted and planned on what I was going to do to the administration when I got out of there. I threw some urine and some feces on her because I couldn't do anything else to her. I couldn't get my hands on her, and so that was the next best thing. It made me feel on top of the world to see her running out of the unit, screaming her head off with feces in her hair and her face.
I got a phone call from some official in Utah. I don't remember his name. But I was, they just told me that that my brother had been attacked by another inmate and that he was dead. And I immediately called my dad and my mom. And you just don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe that someone that you someone that you love is gone.
This was a victim who had a quite storied past in Arkansas, had been in trouble with the law, including armed robbery, had some violent tendencies in Arkansas, and in fact had committed some assaults on guards in Arkansas, committed assaults on inmates in Arkansas.
I don't want to paint a pretty picture of my brother because he was a maximum security risk, is what he told me, and I found out after his death that he was in lockdown.
Originally, we didn't have any idea why the killing took place. As we got into the case more and more, we did more investigation. One of the more startling aspects of the case was that this was really just some racial hatred. The comments that Troy Kell made immediately after the killing. That he was really quite proud of himself, that, that this black person would no longer be around, that he couldn't talk about white women, certain comments like that, that he was really, seemed very proud of himself, that there was one less African American on the earth and that was something good.
I would classify myself as a separatist. I believe that the white man should return to Europe and should have never came over here. Throughout history, if you see the Greeks or the Romans or any civilization that started, the Egyptians, that started to intermingle with foreigners, in a sense, outsiders of their racial groups, eventually they've destroyed themselves.
They call me Nazi, and I'm proud and proud. They call me racist, and I shout it out.
As we delved into the case, we found out fairly quickly that Troy Kell had very strong beliefs as a white supremacist. The white supremacist group, or gang, if you want to call them that, is significant and probably the most significant single group or gang we've got in our prison.
Prison has a tendency to, force an individual, someone who's impressionable as I was, young, to identify with a group and or a certain ideology, and I found that in the white separatist movement, and I felt like I belonged. I felt like I climbed a mountain, reached, got to the top, planted the flag, and I was home.
It's born out of fear. Fear of knowing another race, keeping your distance from another race.
With any kind of white guy that stands up for, his people, he's looked upon as some type of racist race hater. And that's not the case. In the majority of the people,
do you hate Jews?
No, it doesn't concern me at all. I mean, maybe people's actions is what I don't like. I mean, they might choose to do certain things, but there's more you know, white people that need adjusting than anybody else.
In preparation for the case, and primarily the sentencing portion of the case, I went out to Nevada, where of course Troy was housed as an inmate for years. During the course of that, we actually found a letter, and it was a letter that Troy Kell had written probably 10 days to 2 weeks prior to the homicide here in Utah. And he was writing some of his white supremacist inmate friends in Nevada. And in that letter he talked about and actually prophesied that he was going to commit this crime in Utah. Talked about how in his terms, a nappy-headed monkey had been running his mouth, and this nappy-headed monkey was going to get his, and there's going to be pain and suffering involved in that.
It was a power trip to begin with, but it had racial overtones to it. The race issue was used to justify the power trips, controlling the action, wanting to control the TV, the ice bucket, where this person lived with who, things like that that happen in prison.
It becomes racial only as a secondary consequence. It starts off from greed and profit and control, like anything else.
I had a confrontation with him verbally that derived from two other people's fight. That kind of, you know, flowed over to me getting involved with him. And it was kind of agreed between me and him that we were going to take care of it. You know, that any chance that either one of us got, that we were going to deal with the situation. I prepared, I got a knife and I got a handcuff key. We were restrained, we were going down to medical.
They forged his name, requesting that my brother go to the infirmary.
I filled out what they call a medical request slip for Blackman to get him out of his cell on a particular day.
The guard came to my brother's cell and said, "Hey, you ready to go?" And my brother's, "What do you mean? Ready to go where?"
They came over my intercom in my cell and said, "Daniels, you know, you're going to medical today." And I knew it was the day.
He was sporting his colors, you know, flying his bandana.
When he got to the infirmary, Troy Kell and Eric Daniels and another inmate were there also.
The next thing I know, Blackman's running towards me.
And it was on.
He's trying to stab him. He's stabbing him in the back.
I knew that it was a strong hit because of the color of the blood, and it's dark, and that's a sign that where you got an artery or a vein or something like that.
You need SWAT down here, full gear.
Stephen.
Hey, officer, go ahead, come back again.
Stephen. Where's Johnny? Yeah. 1 and 2.
SWAT, full gear in Cedar 3 now.
Section 3 here.
Rack in, everybody! Rack in, everybody!
Rack in, rack in, rack in.
Why did you stab him so many times?
All I can explain really is that he kept moving. I just stabbed the shit out of him, you know, until he didn't move anymore. And I ended up stabbing the man to death.
The shank went into 10.
Afterwards, I felt, man, goddamn, why'd you kind of make me do that? Or I didn't weigh in the fact that he was a father or a brother or a son to anybody. You know, I didn't see him as a human person.
The prison guards saw this happening. There were civilians there. The guard ushers them out. They then go and get into full riot gear. My brother's still being stabbed.
Waiting medical help in Cedar. Medical help immediately in Cedar.
They come in, and then they grab Kel and this other guy. Well, my brother's dying by then. It's just too much time has elapsed.
I will tell you that I've never seen anything like that in my life. I got more and more horrified the more I watched it, as I had to watch it over and over again to prepare for the case. Actually to the point where we had to count the number of stab wounds. After watching the videotape initially, several nights I had problems sleeping. From a prosecutor's standpoint, to have a videotape of the crime is kind of unheard of.
My father and I went to Utah for one reason only, and that was to try to make a change. We wanted to talk to the prison officials. We wanted someone to tell us that they were going to change the procedures. That's why we went, to ensure that what happened to my brother didn't happen to another inmate.
Troy Kell did take the stand. He was very articulate, very intelligent, and was able to bring up emotion, which at the time appeared to be genuine. And in fact, he addressed the victim's family, who happened to be in the audience from Arkansas.
From the witness stand, he asked if, after he finished testifying, if he could talk to me and my dad one-on-one and sit down. And he said, sit down as men and talk.
Told them how sorry he was that he had killed their son, their brother, and he actually was crying at the time, which I've got to say, as a prosecutor, it was one of the more remarkable events I had seen from a defendant testifying on the stand.
There were, like, I think 8 women on the jury and 4 men, and I kind of looked over it when he was testifying, and some of the women were crying.
Fortunately for us, before Troy Kell had taken the stand to testify, he had told 2 of the guards that were transporting him to and from the courtroom, watch this, I'm going to win an Academy Award.
In other words, he was going to get on the witness stand and just lie.
Yeah, I was fighting for my life. I did what I had to do to try to save my life. But I didn't, the emotional part of it was genuine to his family. Because the way I live my life, eventually somebody, if the state doesn't kill me, eventually someone will get me, you know, because of the way I live my life. It's just a part of it. And my family accepts that. And I accept that. But the thing is I would want somebody to show my father the respect that that I think he's got coming. You know, that's all I can really say about that.
So, if I understand you right, you're saying that you meant what you said to that father. That wasn't an act. That wasn't fake.
No, I meant what I said to him. I mean, they want to downplay it because they're fighting to win the case.
I put the guards back on the stand, And the guards ended up testifying as to this conversation they had had with Troy Kell about winning an Academy Award.
I was subpoenaed to testify at that trial. Although I wish he would have done things a lot differently, I don't know if I can, I can't pass judgment upon him for the things he's done. I don't agree with the things he's done. I don't like the things he has done. But I cannot judge him for the things he has done because I don't live like he lives, and I don't walk in his shoes, and I don't feel what he feels.
If society has once sentenced him, convicted him to life without possibility of parole for a murder, and he's chosen then in a very brutal fashion to take another life while incarcerated, what other option is available? And realistically, the chance that Troy Kell in the future could commit another homicide while in prison. And I think that was probably the most weighty thing that ended up in the jurors voting for the death penalty.
I don't think the death penalty works. You know, there are people who's on death row, and you know, we just recently had some. McVeigh was put to death. Does that stop terrorism? I don't think it will. Does it stop people from murdering and killing and raping? I don't think it will. You know, some of my coworkers say, hey, well, he won't do it again. Well, sure, but that doesn't deter others. There's no punishment on this earth that's going to even come close to what Kell will face when he meets God. That's my personal belief. You can kill him 20 times over, and it won't even come close to what he will suffer in the face of God.
I don't believe in the heaven and hell thing. It's a control mechanism to control the masses, and it's run by fear. And I don't believe in any fiery pits or any pie in the sky. I think once you're dead, you're dead.
Come in. When Eric come in on the second time he do his line, that's when the whole band come in. All right, let's try it. You got a line sign? No. Just a minute.
I came to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, and that happened almost 3 years ago. The way I look at people, my relationships with my fellow man and woman, have just changed dramatically. I no longer see people in terms of skin color. I am considered to be a race traitor in their eyes. And so even the things that I'm saying to you right now are things that, you know, I could be retaliated against for.
Well, I'm happy for him. And I hope that he can turn his life around. I'm sorry for fucking his life off.
Mm-hmm.
Troy would be on a spectrum. He would be the extremist. I honestly believe that if Troy was to ever get out of prison, he'd be, you know, blowing up buildings and stuff. I mean, you know.
You mean like a Tim McVeigh or a militia movement,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. And I probably would have too, to be honest with you, if I'd have gotten out of prison. That's the self-destructive path that I was on. the 8th letter of the alphabet is H. HH stands for Heil Hitler. White supremacists believe that Jews are the ultimate enemy, that they pit black and white against each other so that we both eliminate each other in order that they ultimately win. And that's the whole philosophy in a nutshell. Yeah, the banks, the media, they subliminally inject thoughts and opinions into people's minds, and those opinions are all favorable for the Jewish agenda and all that nonsense. And the thing is, I see it now as nonsense, but I'm telling you, I bought into it.
I think that there's some merit to that if you look at the people that are calling the shots, and I think it's definitely not coincidental. I mean, they look out for their own. I mean, they've been through some hard damn times in the history of the world, and they're entitled to do that. And it's a power trip. It's all it is. It's a structure.
Do you believe the Holocaust happened, or do you believe these revisionists who said it never happened? It's just a bad rap on the Third Reich.
To the magnitude that they say, no, because there's no mention. It's only the numbers don't match up to the claim of what they're saying of the Holocaust. Yes, I believe it happened. There was a war going on, and he told them what they were going to do, what he was going to do, 10 years before he even started doing it. It's seek and destroy. That's the way it was, conquest. That's what was happening. I mean, it was. That's just the way it went. I mean, that's how nations were built, was by force.
I deserve the death sentence. I didn't get the death sentence. Again, I believe that God intervened in my life, or at least in 2 jurors' minds, and I didn't receive the death sentence. I deserved it, and I got mercy. And Troy didn't.
I've only been here for one execution, and it happened to be the firing squad. And to me, it seemed a cleaner, faster way to go. The man didn't experience any kind of because they think it's like a medical thing. I got a problem with the way. I don't have a problem with the death penalty. Okay, it's in the sense of that's the penalty. But when they try to, make it like a medical procedure, like they're going into like an operation or something like that, show it for what it is. You're killing a guy, regardless of the justification. We can all justify our actions in one form or another. The fact is, you're killing a guy. So show it for what it is. That's what it is. I think they should take it down to the Delta Center and show the public what exactly is going on.
When he first entered the system, he was 18 years old. He was a handsome man. He was an intelligent man. And I remember him telling me, I'm entering as a man and I'm going to remain a man. And I believe he's done that. I still wake up to this day and I cannot believe I'm here. This is what my life has amounted to. I have spent over half my life in prison. My adult life has been in prison, And it's just really hard. And sometimes I wonder, will I ever get a driver's license? Will I ever get to go buy furniture for, a house? Am I ever gonna, Click on Mouse Invaders and click OK. I hope and I pray that one day I will be given a second chance. I was an unhealthy child. I was a lost child.
How much longer do you expect to be alive?
I don't know. I can't even answer that question. I can't even answer that question. I don't know. I really don't know. I hope a long time, but I go through that all the time. So I don't know.
You go through what all the time?
I go through with making the decision of, living through this shit or not. Because I fucked my life off. So, I've been pissed off since I've been 18 years old.
Shining bright with unspilled tears, thinking about all these wasted years. Everything worth living for is gone, and brother, I find it hard to keep fighting on. Falling down towards the abyss, the reaper embraces me with his kiss. It makes me wanna refuse to care, to watch the sun fall too much to bear. If this is the way it ends, if this is the way my race ends, if this is the way it ends, I can't bear to witness. If this is the way it ends, if this is the way my race ends, if this is the way it ends, I can't bear to witness.
Now, log on to HBO.com and find out more about this documentary and others in the award-winning America Undercover series. Informative, interactive, intriguing. America Undercover at HBO.com.